I've been asking the same initial questions of how someone would feel if like they could have the life they wanted. And they said, I'd feel relief. So I would say I've heard that 99% of the times. And I'm thinking, wow, because that makes me realize or affirm, I think we both know this, Priya, that most people are walking around like tense and stressed, right? The fact that you'd feel relief to experience what you desire, I always thought I was going to hear happiness, joy, and I do hear that. But the most common, like close to 99% of the time, is high achievers tell me they'd feel relief if they could just experience what they desire.
Welcome to Unmute with Priya, the podcast where silence ends, voices rise, and women rediscover the freedom to speak and live authentically, especially in life after 40. This show is proudly sponsored by Project Icon. I'm your host, Priya Sudarsanam. Let's dive into today's conversation. My guest today is Rosie Gualiardo, founder of Inner Brilliance Coaching. Rosie helps high-achieving women break free from burnout, people-pleasing, and the constant pressure to prove their worth so they can build lives that feel successful, not just on the outside, but on the inside too. Rosie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Priya. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be another great conversation. Every time I have a guest on, I'm like, this is going to be a great conversation. This is definitely going to be an amazing one. Just talking about the work that you do. So before we dive into that, you started Inner Brilliance Coaching because you were the woman that you help now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was in marketing and advertising and I loved it. It was fun, but it was intense. And I went through a divorce at the time. I was in my late 20s. And I would say to myself, like, I felt like I had to get the next set of goals, right? The promotion, improve the relationship, or at that point, have a new one, lose the perpetual 10 pounds. And I thought, I'm so tired already. And my relatives are from Sicily. They've lived to be in their mid 90s. Priya, I thought, how am I going to go at this speed for another 6 decades? So I knew something had to change. So that's why I started looking into different ways to live. And the rest started Inner Brilliance Coaching. Well, there's more to the story, but started Inner Brilliance Coaching, and that's when it all began. And almost 20 years ago.
So you started Inner Brilliance Coaching 20 years ago.
Well, I started my coaching courses, got 2 certifications, which built on my psychology degree from college at Northwestern. And I had always loved the study of the human mind. And it was the perfect segue, it seemed like. To be honest, I was exploring all my options. At that point, like I said, I was going through a divorce. I had a really fun job in advertising, working on big brands like McDonald's, Anheuser-Busch theme parks, Unilever. I learned a ton, but what I started seeing was, again, I didn't know if I could keep it all going. Actually, that's not true. I could keep it all going, but there was a cost to it.
That's what I was going to say, but at what cost?
Right. And a lot of people I work with, that's the thing. They don't come to me because they can't keep doing it. They can,
Right.
but they're losing themselves in the process or not even sure how to connect with themselves, which is what breaks my heart, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So that's when I knew, like I said, something had to shift. And that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to explore my options. Believe it or not, I thought about starting a bakery, going into interior design. And then a friend of mine who's also in marketing, actually, she ended up staying in marketing. She gave me something called a sample session of coaching. And I thought, well, this is interesting. And I started learning more and found out it really took a lot of my psychology background and it took my marketing expertise and it combined it because marketing is all about moving things forward, sharing, putting yourself out there in a consistent, clear, and compelling way and attracting, hopefully, your customers. So I applied that marketing principle, if you will, of being clear, consistent, and compelling to my life. I got clear on who I wanted to be, who I was, and how I wanted to show up in my life. I put that out in a consistent way because people don't really have time to figure us out. We could
Exactly.
figure ourselves
Right.
out. And I put it out, I think, in a compelling way. And I started attracting situations, people, and opportunities that aligned with my deepest desires. So, Priya, I went from someone who could over engineer, strategize, do all the mental work to get a result. I went from that person, which is exhausting, to someone who was more naturally and organically attracting what she desired. And I was like, I have to share this with people. It is just such a better approach.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like I think so many people, so many of us, we're in this do, like from early childhood, do, and then be. And it sounds like you found your be, how to be and how to be so that you can have.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You hit it on the head.
That's amazing. So my question to you is as you were going through this, when you were, it sounds like when you were in your 20s and you were in this midst of this career and these changes in your life, you were on autopilot.
I was, yeah. Just
Was
going
there
through the motion.
something cultural or within your family or just, was it just within you that had you think, okay, I have to do it this way. I have to go through life this way. I got my education. Now I have to go.
Priya, wow, such a great question about the culture piece. It's funny because we didn't even talk about this, you and I. I would say my parents are immigrants, right, from Sicily. So I joke that I've often have the American mindset, but the Italian emotions. And I was treating them separately for a very long time. And I actually equate it to what I think people might be able to relate to more is when we talk about left and right brain thinking or masculine and feminine energy, I call it American and Italian energy.
Oh, I
And
love it.
so, yeah, and it's funny because when I was in my late 20s and I had this discovery, I needed something different. I sat there and I realized I was chasing all these things I thought I should do, which makes us all very successful. I think it helped my Sicilian parents, be able to create successful lives or help their children create good lives and now their grandchildren and all that. That American way, right? Work hard, get results.
Right.
But what I noticed my parents did is they held on to a lot of the Italian ways and culture and beauty and values and love and what I might call feminine energy or right brain thinking. I was slowly letting go of it. And it hit me because there I was in my late 20s. I said, I'm going to change everything. And I'm doing all these things I should do. And there's that terrible joke in coaching. You need to stop shoulding on yourself. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's it. And I remember even putting my foot down. I'm like, I'm only going to do what I want to do. And I sat there and I thought, I'm not even sure what that is. And that's when I set out on that path I said earlier to uncover who I am, who I wanted to be, what would make me happy and joyful and excited. And the reason that matters is what you said a minute ago about working hard and do. I started rewinding and I thought, I've been working hard since I was 12 years old to get good grades, then to get into the good college, then get the good job and get married, all checking off all the boxes. And for many of us who are high achievers and have had the privilege of the support we need to get good results, we can do that through our 20s, a lot of times through our 30s. And we just keep pushing harder. And that's the only way we know. That's when I said, okay, we need to shift this and look at that new approach I started talking about.
So many people strive for success. They're striving for this point and success. When you say success, it's not like there's this thing that defines success, because once, this is my experience, once we hit it, then we're striving for something more. So it seems like this endless cycle that we can get stuck on. My question for you is, at what point does striving for success turn into trying to prove our worth?
Well, I guess that's what I feel like that's what I was conditioned to believe,
Yeah.
right? That success was proving my worth. And I heard this this term in Harvard Business Review. A college friend sent it to me, and this article said a lot of people are insecure overachievers. And when I say that to my clients or potential clients, they nod, kind of like you just did, like, yep, I get it. Now, what happens is we basically, it's so many industries, like, not to blame any industries, but a lot of industries like consulting, medicine, law, advertising, they really love insecure overachievers, people who are trying to prove their worth. So when you said, where I think that's what I've learned. And so I had to unlearn that. Does that make sense? I
That
had to
totally makes sense.
unlearn that success is only what we saw on the outside. And what matters is, at least for me, I thought what I felt on the inside, it needs to count as well. It can't just be all one or the other. So I actually started redefining success as a balance of pleasure and meaning. So it's both. And Tal Ben Shahar, he wrote the book Happier. He's a Harvard professor and he taught the class Happier. And that's how he defined it. And once I saw that, that was like my anchor. How do I find that balance between pleasure and meaning? Again, I'm going to always go back to right and left brain, Italian American, like the go, 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 the meaning and the pleasure, the beauty, the joy. Because if you're just, let's say, all focused on pleasure and not anything else, you could become hedonistic, which
Yeah.
my high achievers, people I know, really aren't. But if you are always thinking about meaning, 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 yes, that's important. But if that's all you do, you end up becoming like dry, and I see it now, like almost empty on the inside.
Yeah. Yeah. You're saying so many amazing things. I probably have like deer in headlights face listening to you because I'm like,
Mhm.
whoa, that's profound. That's profound. You bring up the word joy, and I love that you're talking about that because I think so many people that I speak to are thinking that joy comes later in life once you're done with all the things that you
Someday.
start. Yeah, the someday, exactly,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
then the someday may never come, and or waiting until retirement, like 65, "All right, then I'm gonna enjoy my life." But you're bringing up a point that we have to actually start doing this now.
I want to lead with that. And that's basically why I started tuning into, for me at least, the most important thing was my energy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. If I was depleted, in other words, not feeling joy, I noticed my results. Could I get some of the results I wanted? Sure.
Right.
But I worked really hard to get them. And I saw my clients doing the same thing. And honestly, sometimes you said this too. You got the result and you weren't even that joyful when you got it, right? We keep saying, I'll be happy when. And then when comes, you got it. And you're happy maybe for 60 or 90 seconds because you put so much effort into getting the thing versus really understanding who you've become. And does it even align with who I am, my values, what would make me happy? So
Yeah.
I had to flip the script and say, I'm going to start with, not in a cheesy way, start with joy. That's why I use the word energy. Like, what makes me come alive physically? And I know I've studied the basic tenets that I love it now because 20 years ago, I feel like this wasn't mainstream, but now everyone talks about, right? Sleep, movement. I have my aura ring for my sleep. I consume like the Mediterranean diet most of the time. I understand my emotional health, and when it comes to spirituality, I don't necessarily mean religion. I also mean just connecting your mental, physical, and emotional aspects, or really giving meaning and purpose to your life. When I started taking care of those four aspects of my life, everything started to change. I didn't have to work as hard. That's what I mean by I started attracting the results versus forcing and pushing to get
And
them.
going and searching for those results.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
So I love that you bring up energy. I energy is the basis
Yeah.
of my work. I love it. And you talk about alignment, saying some really words that are speaking to my soul. In your business and the women that you work with, as far as energetics go, what are some of the biggest signs that a woman's become disconnected from herself in your experience in on the body, mind, soul, energetic connection?
One of the biggest ones, and I say biggest because I feel like it's right when I meet them. I have people go through what I call a return on energy session. Let's help you get back some of that energy. And it's when I ask what they want and they don't even know, or how would they want to feel? And they're so disconnected from their emotions.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always most I shouldn't say I'm always surprised by because I was that person too for a while where I couldn't connect to my body, the sensations and how that felt. I think the third sign for me is when uh, during my consultation, I ask a series of questions. Again, I've been doing this, I'm going to say almost 20 years because I got my coaching certifications, then started the business maybe 19 years ago, 18 and a half years ago. I've been asking the same initial questions of how someone would feel if like they could have the life they wanted. And they said, I'd feel relief. So I would say I've heard that 99% of the times. And I'm thinking, wow, because that makes me realize or affirm, I think we both know this, Priya, that most people are walking around like tense and stressed, right? The fact that you'd feel relief to experience what you desire, I always thought I was going to hear happiness, joy, and I do hear that. But the most common, like close to 99% of the time, is high achievers tell me they'd feel relief if they could just experience what they desire.
Oh my gosh, that's profound. That, but I can also
Right? Because
resonate.
you feel it in your body, right? That's the feeling. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you imagine it'd be like something, I don't know, something super exciting? They're like, no, I just could breathe. I would
Yeah.
get to breathe.
Oh my gosh. Let's talk about some of these high achieving women that you work with. So, how does a high achieving woman know they need you?
I think it's when they are saying, I can keep this all going, but I don't want to anymore,
Mm,
right? Or they're recognizing that their own negative self talk is really what's getting in the way. Oftentimes, when I go through the return on energy session, someone who's really self aware, and again, with all the tools we have today, people know so much more. And
right.
they always go like, I'm the main thing getting in my own way. So it's the if you're talking to yourself and recognizing you're not being nice to yourself, if you're in people pleasing mode, if you're always pushing and forcing, they call that an overuse of our masculine energy. And to be clear, and you know this, Priya, right? We all have masculine and
Right.
feminine energy. And we also have our left and right brain. So many people just want to categorize themselves one way. And I remember reading this years ago in a book about Leonardo da Vinci, who, was such an important figure during the Renaissance. And the biggest thing they said about back then in innovation was the smartest people, they said, were those who could integrate their left and their right brain. And I really think today, not to get into the AI stories, but
Right.
what's going to help people stand out is that feminine energy, that right brain, that human side of us that I think a lot of people have turned off, right? So
I
if
agree.
if you're not trusting yourself, if you're people pleasing, if you're pushing, and if you're exhausted and proving energy, that's when someone knows, okay, I need to do something different. Let me talk to Rosie and figure out a new way to succeed.
It does. Well, I feel like once you grasp it, it's a dance because, like you said, talking about masculine energy, female energy is not about man, woman. It's about energies, and you get to dance, you get to play. Like so, one minute you could be doing something that's really requires that masculine energy, and other times you need that real feminine energy. So, learning how to dance with it rather than one or the other, as you said.
Yeah, the key is that's such a great point because again, I think people are used to categorizing. It's a dance, and that's why I like to think of it as integration in an authentic way for you. So
Yeah.
it'll look different for me than it might for you. And it would look different in different parts of my life. So sometimes, when I'm in a coaching session, both my feminine and masculine are there, right? My masculine might be this version of me who's always on time, ready there for my client, ready to work on what I call life practices and give it's instead of homework, I call it life practices because that
I
sounds
love
like
that.
more
Yeah.
fun, right? In
Homework
between
is
a
never
session.
fun.
No, who wants to do an assignment? So I'll be able to bring that side of me to my business. That's how I run my business. But I have very deep conversations with my client. We really get into profound transformation, sometimes even healing generational trauma. So I don't need to be all business in that moment. That's when I bring in my higher self. I call her Sunny. She represents light yeah, and it's connected to inner brilliance. My hope is to bring out other people's light and inner brilliance. And so both are needed in that moment, but I'm very conscious and aware of how I use them and when.
I love that you talk about that because I think that so many people don't realize how much ancestral trauma they're carrying, and it could be from generations past, and you're just doing things on autopilot based on that generational pattern, and it can stop with you as
Yes,
well.
Priya. I think, yeah, it's so important because, and I know this is pretty deep for a shorter conversation, but I think I laugh. My clients tend to stay with me for a while as I support them during different life stages. And we laugh because they're like, remember the first time we met in our consultation and we basically talked about how I was going to get a new job. Right? Like, that's
Yep.
what we were discussing. And to recognize that, oh my gosh, we've gone so much deeper. And I like that we're bringing that up because sometimes we get so frustrated, right? Why haven't I noticed the change? I'm doing all the work. saying the affirmations. I'm doing what I think a lot of people do is the mindset work. And
Yeah.
that's great. But there's a way to do it that it really impacts your subconscious mind. So I bring in neuroscience as well when I'm doing my coaching. But there's the spirituality piece where you look back and it's deeper than just you. And sometimes we have to look at what's been embodied within you and how do we change those patterns on a nervous system level as well.
Yeah. Oh, this could be an amazing hours long conversation just listening to you. But let's talk about your business and the work that you're doing with women. So tell me a little bit more about what capacity do you work with women? Is there an application? How do people get
Yeah.
started with you?
Basically, I have two programs. There's my signature based program called Discover and Align. And this is where you really get to understand yourself. Who are you? Who do you want to be? Your strengths, right? That's the first thing because as I said earlier, a lot of people don't know what they
Yeah.
want. So we start with that. The second piece, and really I would say the foundation of all my programs are acceptance of that. Because I think we on some level know what we want.
Right.
It's accepting it after decades of probably saying, no, I don't need that or want that, or I can't do that. So what I help them go through and discover and align is understand themselves, then accept themselves, and finally honor themselves. Follow through, right? Set those boundaries, those loving boundaries, make it happen. So, what they end up doing is understanding themselves, how they operate best energetically, and then they shift into attracting what they desire versus forcing it. So
Yeah.
that's my first program, Discover and Align, and that's done one on one privately. Then I have my next level where a lot of my clients end up graduating into, or even if you haven't worked with me on the base level, because so many people have done some of this coaching or work, my next level program is Embody and Magnetize. And that's when we take everything we've learned from that first base program and we deepen their sense of self worth, self-trust, and really loving themselves. And not in a, hey, you should really do this. I actually support them in getting to that place. And what I found, and this was the cool thing for the next level, I thought was instead of just attracting what people they did, aligning and attracting, when you embody your truth and really feel it, you start to magnetize results even better than you can imagine. And that's what I want to support people in doing is I started setting out applying all of my tools and with my clients as well. And like one client was planning on retiring with her husband in 2028 to sail around the world. We've been doing the work. They left last March.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
so and it's stuff like that, or I mean, I have so many examples I could share. So I have those 2 programs. I also have a masculine feminine energy program, which is like 21-day text program. I have a 30-day manifesting program. So there's different ways you can work with me, but the best way to start is just schedule a return on energy session. I ask you 4 simple questions. We'll walk through it, see what's draining you, what can help you come alive, and how to move forward in a way where, again, you could start attracting more of what you desire.
That's amazing. Everything can be accessible from your website, right?
Absolutely. You could go to innerbrilliancecoaching.com, and I'm also happy to share links and we can put them in
Yep.
the notes.
Definitely. We'll make sure to put those in the show notes. That sounds amazing. That sounds pretty, all those different programs that you offer. It's like, oh, this is great. And when you talk about embodiment and you actually experience embodiment for the first time, it's like a feeling unlike anything.
Right.
Nobody can prepare you for it. It's just this knowing. And I say that from my own experience where everybody was talking about embodiment and alignment and all of these things. And then
Right.
once I experienced it for myself, it was like, oh, this is it.
Right. It's a hard thing to put into words. So
Yeah,
thank you for saying that. My hope is like if we just had to say you just start to learn to work with your energy, and that's the beauty of it. That's all we really can impact is ourselves. And when
absolutely.
you do that and you move through the world, I think with more joy and confidence, you start to be able to have success you desire, but in a much more fulfilling and sustainable way.
Absolutely. This is such a great conversation, Rosie.
Thanks.
I'm gonna want to have you back on the show and have deeper conversations around, especially around the spirituality part. This
I
could go
love it.
in so many different directions. In closing, if somebody's listening to this and it feels stuck, burned out, unsure of who she is anymore, or even who he is anymore, what's the
Mhm.
first step they can take to finding their way back? What would you suggest there?
I would really say just grounding down, and there's a grounding meditation I like to do called the Fountain of Light, and it's really like we won't have time to go through it today, but I honestly think getting silent and present. And I know silence is tough, so it doesn't have to mean quiet all the thoughts because that's really hard, but it's just noticing your surroundings, even practicing that mindfulness gets you aligned immediately. You're connected with yourself, and then I believe and tell me what you think, Priya. People, I just think insights start to rise up
Absolutely.
once we get a little bit quiet.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I'm with you there. I've just finally gotten back into my practice because
Mhm,
it's been so noisy and I'm like, okay, I need
mhm,
there to be quiet. And in
mhm.
just 3 days, there's been a massive shift internally. So thank you for bringing that
Yeah,
up.
love
Yeah.
that.
Rosie, thank you for being my guest today. Like I said, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing just a glimpse of your magic. And like I said, I can't wait to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Priya. It was a joy to meet you and to spend some time with you. I'd love to continue it.
Absolutely. This show was brought to you by Project Icon.